Wise Prince. All right. I'm gonna let a couple of minutes go by, so that I could build on it. But or people could just rewind. That way I could just say it though. Today's math is knowledge cipher, knowledge add on a cipher, all being born of knowledge. And peace to Wise Prince. And I think this peace of the God. Last week was a very interesting week for me, and it goes into knowledge add on a cipher. Last week, the God Inf Mega was here interviewing me, and I was answering his questions. And knowledge add on a cipher, though, in the alphabets is justice. Justice is an action word. You know what I'm saying? It's a performance of something based on a judgment. You see? And so, peace to the God self I build. And what I have realized, what has really come to me is that this idea of when we look at knowledge add on a cipher, understand that anytime knowledge is introduced to what you have already done, it has the capabilities of changing the entire reality of everything that you have just made. Everything that you have just born can be completely shifted with that new knowledge that gets added onto the cipher. Peace to I God. You see? Last week I spoke and I didn't deal with all of the knowledge that I had about a specific subject. I had this knowledge, but I spoke as if it didn't affect me. I did it thinking that this was the way to go, because the knowledge I didn't want it to be exposed. I didn't want it to affect a certain individual that I care very much about. Right? And so I realized that it takes this idea of knowledge, everything that you are learning, affecting everything that you do, means that knowledge is a circular event. This knowledge, as we add on, right? We live it out. We mentally apply for usefulness, wisdom. We get an understanding, a revelation of its purpose, and then we take it to the outer world in the culture that we live out, the creations that we make, and it becomes powerful enough to bring about an equality, a new balance around that reality that allows us to fulfill who we are, realize who we are in a deeper way, the true and living God, 7, allow us to change the reality around us, build and destroy what was once there and build something anew and bring something to complete fulfillment, born. But then like that, the knowledge adding on to the cipher could change all of that. You see what I'm saying? Throughout my career, the more and more that I have done my best to be a righteous individual has put me more and more in the position of being a gatekeeper, whether it be this knowledge or whether it be in hip hop, to see if someone is fake, if someone is real, if someone has the integrity. And I don't mean just in making the music, but because this music is based on words of men primarily, but words of Black men and women that are representing their reality on a deeper level, then now the words count to more than just representing a sentiment. A beautiful soul song, a beautiful song interpretation is a sentiment. Doesn't mean that man went through that heartbreak. He's expressing the sentiment. But that's not the case with hip hop. You're representing things. You see what I'm saying? And so this gatekeeping thing becomes fused, especially as this hip hop has been able to express this knowledge of self, because the gods taught the youth, and then the gods became the youth, and then the youth taught through their ways of expression. And so it becomes intertwined. And you learn of artists that do great things. You may have trepidation about particular things that they do, but that's the way they do it. Musically, it's on point. Then you find out that they did something deplorable, something that cannot be redeemed. Not dislike, not something they did that you don't like, a choice of a bad beat. They rhymed, over, synthetic substitution for the millionth time. You know what I'm saying? Nothing like that. But something that questions everything about their manhood. They did devilish to a woman. I'm talking about a specific MC that I spoke about. You see what I'm saying? Not the gods that I spoke about. Not the true and living gods. Some of the true and living gods I spoke about, though, I had to go back and forth about certain things just because I was thrust into those ciphers. This is the way it has been. You see? And I'll say this again, though. If a man is ever accused of something, especially the god, he ought to go in front of those other gods and speak to his innocence and show and prove to the best of his ability. If he doesn't want to do that, though, this shit is not no court of U.S. law where I don't have to take the stand. Nah. You got to take the stand, though. You got to show and prove that you're right and exact. You may not be able to prove your innocence. You're not going up on the stand to show and prove. You're not standing on your square to show and prove that. You're going to show and prove that you are right and exact. And so I have to write about people differently. And if people ask me what MC, I'll tell people off air and everything like that, right? And when people mention this MC, they'll figure out who it is because I will say that I will not be speaking on this MC. And to some people, he is crucial to this movement. If you read my books, I have said he is very crucial to this movement. No, that's my poetry. But the reel of 2020, the filtered reel of 2021 and 2020, right? But this is the way it is. You find out things, you know what I'm saying? And I'm never surprised that I find out someone did some piece of shit thing. Let's leave it this way. Because I haven't met this individual face to face. But I know from a source of perfect repute. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Official source.
Right.
And I'm saying it as a journalist, though. That I could get this source material.
That's crazy.
That they conducted themselves in the way of devilishment. Right. That they can't give an excuse why that was done. No man is held. No man is under the is done with until he is physically dead. But that right there puts him in an active mental death. And it's not like this particular person's music was fucking conscious. You know what I'm saying? To begin with, right? But it's such a difficult thing to do. I will, at the end of this year, I will publish a book where I've covered over at least 300 artists. How is it possible that I could check every single individual? It is not possible. Just like no one can say and come up to me and say, is this man the true and living God? I don't know that man. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I didn't meet that man. But I know a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's tough.
So to give a framework that knowledge add on a cipher, if it is impeded in any way, you see? If it is impeded in any way, it obstructs the build. You see? Many people would not notice it though, but I started to say different things because I didn't want to say about that. So I said, how can I answer this question and just leave it at that? I offended the person that they did this wrong to because of that. You know what I'm saying?
Not really. You offended them.
So this individual artist that did that devilishment, right, by me not speaking on it or making it relevant in some kind of way in the conversation, offended the person that was what was that dealt with that situation, that had to suffer through that situation,
I understand.
who came out on top like a fucking champion,
So I usually go,
was still hurt by that.
because you just speak up.
Right.
But you didn't call them out.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
And again,
I understand that.
the way I've dealt with things has been, is this information for everybody? I wasn't sure about that. The God's question caught me off guard. I wasn't mentally prepared. I make that note though because what seemed to be the correct answer is just my years of good preparation, knowing what to say, so that the majority will get the idea of something useful. See? But in that one moment though, all I thought about was I had to build by extracting all the knowledge that I knew. And see, we're always impaired if what you learn new is not being applied to what has happened, what is the reality. You know what I'm saying? It's why I tell every student, you are not in this classroom to say Sunez has done great things, I'm going to go learn with him. You are also in this classroom to say, how is Sunez showing improvement right now? You see? How is he showing improving right now? How is he handling himself? How has he handled himself through adversity and through these things? You see? And so it becomes a life where if I'm teaching about health, I have to do my best to be as healthy as possible. These things came hand in hand because I wanted to be that way. But they also got realized that they have to be a duty. I don't think that people ought to be learning here from people that have not achieved the things that they are trying to learn from. See? So when someone comes here and say, listen, I need to make lots of money, I'll say, listen, there's a book called Think and Grow Rich. But you will not learn that from me. Because most of my choices have been to preserve my integrity, not to advance my riches. And in the line of work I've been in, that has often clashed, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? Right? All these magazines, all of this hip hop journalism, they clash. You know what I mean? You know, but I say that to say this though, is that in the movie, one of my favorite movies, it's probably the one movie I would pick to show the beauty of Kung Fu, if not the detail of Kung Fu, like how you would actually do it. This would not be that movie. But Jet Li's Hero, that's the name of the movie, Jet Li's Hero. Beautiful score, right? Score, you know, Chinese classical, it's beautiful, right? It's about the assassination of a king. And Jet Li, his name is nameless. It's done deliberately because in the Buddhist concept, nameless means that if he's going to kill the king and he's going to judge the king, then he's nameless though. See? In other words, the judgment is the king and the king's alone. It's not that assassin. And so the king is based, as he goes to kill the king, he's hearing, the king is giving him all these different stories about what possibly has happened and how they end up in this situation. The king has killed many people. So every single version, though, the story doesn't ruin the beauty of the movie. Seriously, like that's why I can tell the story. But the main crux of the movie is that the decision of the assassin, I won't say what he decides, is based on not what the king has done, but the Buddhist concept of what was the king's intent.
That's conflicting.
You see? So his intent was well-meaning, and that becomes the most important thing.
So if you kill somebody with good intent.
So no, it is not a simple movie to watch. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what is being said here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? For the greater good of things. Because remember, let me say this.
Like Thanos,
when a man is responsible for a large populace, his decisions, regardless of how peaceful they are, men will die. Men, women, and children will die. If we thrust, with all the knowledge you need, Luigi, we put you at the top of this whole country because of the way this country has been run, because of what has happened. We give you full reign power. You, with all the knowledge you need, No corruption on your end. Like you'll say something and it will be done. Your decisions will still harm a certain section of the populace. You see? Because there were so many people you were responsible for, and there was such an engagement and interaction between all of these different things where some will get, that means that some will be pulled from, some will be pushed toward. And so someone will suffer, the larger the populace, you know? And so we look at this, and when you get knowledge added on to the cipher, it is how you will add it on. See? How you add it on. Will you embed it into the cipher, or will you let it linger, as I did, to see when is it right to use it? See? People will suffer. For me, a very wonderful person in my life suffered because of the way I made that choice, even though everyone seemed to be taught correctly. You see? Right? Keeping it just on a musical level. You know what I'm saying? Right? Very important. Very important. And it becomes a thing, it is a real thing, that if this is the responsibility that I have been thrust with, because I have for years, to do that even in music, in hip hop, it is very well in the possibilities that nearly a large chunk of the most talented will be found out to be pieces of shit.
That shit is so conflicting.
That's the way life is.
I feel like quitting beats like that.
Yeah, I feel you.
Because of that.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying this has been since 1994.
That shit sucks.
You know what I'm saying? This is why so many people stick with the new artists, they stick with the young artists, they stick with these things. See? But I'm saying this to say that I can't do that. Certain people with this flag on, this universal flag on, have said, it's okay, I still rock with that individual. See? I can't, and I probably would not still. I know I would not still, even if I heard their side, because they have not atoned for what they did. They have not sought to live more righteously because of that, and they have shown that they have not.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And it's easy to see if they have, because you can hear it in the lyric. Like literally hear it in the lyric.
Right.
They have not atoned for what the fucking shit they did. And it's funny that they talk some of these rappers, this particular one has so much talk about the street ethos and what you'll do in the street, what you will not do. And yet, in a real life situation, they didn't do that. You know what I mean? It says what you want, and I don't know. It's such a thing where I don't think that individual will ever have a challenge to his integrity like that moment, so that they could say, you see, I really have been better.
Right.
Sometimes you get one shot in such a wild scenario. Sometimes you get that one shot to keep it real, and you fucked up.
Right.
You fucked up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's what has me thinking about now. Let's add on a cipher. I have a student ask me today. He was building with somebody locked up, and they asked for his particular literature. It was more Islamic literature, not our stuff. And he gave it to him. And he was worried that this student, they want to learn, but they asked for literature that is not really what we deal with. And I feel like they might be being led astray because I gave it to him. And it's like, you could always take the moment. What I would do is take the moment to be clear about what you teach, and that what you teach is different than that. And often, in many cases, could be in contradiction to that or in disagreement with what I just shared with you. But that's what you asked for, so that's what I gave you. To make knowledge born like that is enough. But we also fall victim, because that's not what a 5%er is either, to go out and feel a certain way because you didn't teach people what you wanted them to know. You see? If they didn't ask for that, that's not what you should be telling them. You see? The job really, the reality isn't in anything. Is to teach to that person's level of understanding. What could they use? Maybe you add on, you say, listen, I think you could use this. And I want to add it on to what I gave you already, only because the things I gave you what you asked for, and they're not really what I deal with. But be very wary in those situations, because when we help individuals, it's not always about what we think they ought to know either. You see? It's why in the classroom here, because it's a cipher that I'm controlling here, I can ask the student what they need. What do you think about yourself? And then what would you like to know? And then as we go along, I say, I think you'd be very well served with this. See if you could use this. But at the same time, I'm really trying to, first and foremost, answer those things that you need to know with the best of my knowledge. Even if they might refer you to things that I don't necessarily agree with. You know what I'm saying? What if a man wanted to know all the different religious teachings and he felt he'd learn Islam as we teach it in contrast to everyone else's interpretation? That'd be a different way, right? But I wouldn't hinder a man to go that direction. This is the direction that they chose, their own pedagogy, their own way of teaching themselves, you know? And so I would tell the guy not to feel so bad about that, you know, that he had done his best, you know? Right? And that's it. That's all you could do, is do your best, you know? And the best way to do your best is to teach people what they are asking, what you think that they could use, but not necessarily what you want them to know, you know? I'll take a pause here with that. And anybody could ask me any questions, you know what I'm saying, about anything. I'll answer as best as I can. Self-I Build, you said, it's important that I remain mindful, knowledge of the people and places, cipher, that I entertain and frequent. I've learned that association over time can reproduce born its kind, which can be favorable or unfavorable. The result is dependent upon the intentional focus of my energy and awareness. Very true. That build borns itself. Very strong. Peace, Malik. Mrs. Supreme, peace. Malik, you said awareness of being the creator and the foundation of all, and the cipher is my inspiration to keep creating by the creation infinitely. I see it. I see where you're getting at there. All right. Yeah. But you know, when I started to continue, you know, in my hip hop career, I quit many times. I quit magazines, and then there was that it because interviews didn't go well. Someone was terrible. You know what I'm saying? But then I would continue because I had interviews with great ones as well that went great. You know, like with real legends. So I was like, man, if G Rap loved it, if you know KRS loved it, who the fuck is that guy? You know what I'm saying? So you continue. Then other times I've quit because at the time, like in the 90s, I don't have a forum. I have to, everything I write, I have to give it to someone else for them to put it in there. And it's always going to come out different. And it comes out so different that it dishonors the artist that I was just speaking to. This happened multiple times. Yeah, changing my words, you know what I mean? You know, flipping it. I remember I did a review for Mountain Brothers, Asian group. Very nice Asian. Had two good albums, you know? And when I got to know them, and I sent them what I sent before it came out. So they saw something totally different. When it came out, it said that they, you know, Mountain Brothers is trying to be like Tribal Quest, which is a terrible comparison. But I never would write like that. Right. You know, I never would write like they're trying to be like this. You know what I'm saying? And that, you know, that would be literally passive aggressive, saying something positive, but then I say that. Right. You know, and if they were, let's say, I don't know, they were more thugged out, if they were more rugged, it might have been beef with me in them. You know what I'm saying? Right? But they weren't those kind of people. But I think they helped derail their career with a bullshit fucking review. You know? But and so like things like that would make me like just quit, because if I can't get what I truly wrote in something, then what's the point of this? You know? I've done it independently and just not been able to get the advertising push. You know what I'm saying? Like my own publications. You know, so all of these things, you know what I'm saying? But what really got me back into it was that I had a forum with brothers. That's what Premier Hip Hop is, you know, when I started to write in there. That's where most of these books are launched from. And those working with Kevlar 7 who returned, Remembered Imperfection, and Paragon who designs a lot of my covers.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
He's good. I
and
remember.
those brothers, I was able to really do what I think a hip hop writer ought to do as a creative force and really let loose. But I said that this was my element of my creative element as a hip hop journalist to write creatively about the music. I was saying this in 1995 and no one let me do it. So I literally performed it in the 2010s. It's a long time. It's a long time.
Between.
You know what I'm saying? All the magazines that I've been at, my own publications where I would do it, but I wouldn't have the push. You know what I'm saying? And just not being able to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I never really got to show what it looked like in full bloom. I say all that to say, like, the real joy of it though is when I don't have to live off of it. Honestly, the last couple of years I've had to live off of it. It is not as enjoyable. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like when people see me put out all these books though, I live off those books. You know what I'm saying? And but yeah, it's not easy, you know, especially people that they don't read.
Right.
You know? They're not readers. You know? They know that this is important, but they don't read, you know? But you know,
That's crazy.
yeah. And but the most joy I've gotten out of it though is that free form. You know, and I'll say to you, like, you can always find people to work with that are gonna be palatable to you as individuals, as humans. You know what I'm saying? Always. Don't think not. You know what I'm saying? And it's okay to be a recluse too. You know?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. You know? It really is, you know what I mean? Because you'll find that individual, you know, that will do it though. It's hard because the work of the musician is yourself is giving the other artist a form. It's like making that form for them, you know? And you find out things about people, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You learn about things and you're like, you know, this is not the person I'm fucking with, you know?
Right. I feel like that happens more
Yeah,
times
yeah.
than not.
But yeah, you know, but
I mean, could you continue working with these people that you find out like, oh,
listen, it's a thing for me now to say, listen, do I even write about this individual? See? But I'm a feisty motherfucker though. So you get written about though, but not in the way that you like now. You know what I'm saying? And it's only because the work I'm doing, especially with like the Real Love, that's a completist book. You know? So instead of really analyzing his music, that entry is going to be an essay about fucking keeping it real and how not doing that and going against all fucking street code, integrity, anything that you want to fucking call it, fucks up your shit. Because you can't, you know, like especially if you're MC, you can't be out here fucking rhyming, acting like you're the fucking leader of shit and not being a fucking leader. You don't get it both ways. You know what I'm saying? You don't get it both ways. Take off that emblem of being a fucking leader of this shit, you know, or being the guiding force, you know, because now it's a guiding force though because everyone has fallen under an illusion, you know. But I know the God knows in this music shit, you know, some real niggas get fake. You know what I'm saying? And it changes the whole thing.
Fish, by the way, don't you know?
Oh, okay, no, yeah.
I know you don't fuck with the fish either, but you know what I'm saying?
Damn you. No, it's fine. I'd rather you eat and not starve, you know, but you know, the discussion was, and I'll bring it to you because you know you're a DJ, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. Last week I was asked about a certain artist though. We'll talk about it all.
I was
Yeah.
listening to a little bit.
Okay, so I don't have to go through the whole thing. But this idea of knowledge add on the cipher is the comfort the mettle, mettle, of being comfortable enough of letting the truth change the whole reality of what you wrote. You know what I'm saying? I'd have to be okay with that. I can't, you know, I can't be, it isn't always as easy as a fucking Action Bronson. You know what I'm saying? Where there's fake aspects the whole way. Where if you watch it though, yeah, you know, you just dig deep. This guy was saying a nigger word. You dig deep, he didn't even have the high pitch yet. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have it. You know, if you really know emceeing, you know that it's not just what you say, it's the way you're saying it, the cadence, the pitches, the inflections, all of that. You know what I'm saying? Right? Sometimes they're easy like that. You know? Sometimes they're not. We find out that a nigga's fake. You know what I'm saying? And they do shit that it's not really my place to say how they could redeem themselves. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. No? I don't know if that's even possible in this particular situation. But I'm not a fake nigga.
Did you speak on the allegation on what was said? Because I missed that part. I don't know what they did, pretty much.
Simple, without getting into detail.
Mm-hmm.
They violated a person that shouldn't have been violated. And then they went to the courts about it.
Mm.
While they was in the wrong. They did the wrong. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? And if you got the poster on the wall, you got to rip it off, just like LL Cool J. That, you know, just like they did with LL Cool J. You know, and I Need Love. You know, get your dad to rip off the poster of the nigga. You know what I'm saying? But it's fake shit, and people will know because this commentary will be their entry in the book. You know what I'm saying? Because it's important. The better you get as an artist in hip hop, to me, especially the MC, the one who's talking this shit, the more you're responsible to have that ethos. Because you don't get to be great and not represent the ethos 100%. You don't get to be a fake nigga and then release music of the ethos for the popular stuff. You don't get to do that. You know what I mean?
I think it happens more than that.
And it's got to be, if it wasn't challenged before, it's got to be challenged though. You know? It's why we see men with flaws, which is fine, but they have to be challenged to it. You know? You see, let's say you see Nas coming out with an album though, right? Because he has decided not to just be the best, right? He's at the GOAT level. Like he's one of the GOAT candidates, right? People can argue he's GOAT. So he's a GOAT candidate. But because he has decided to be a moral compass of note, right? Then that means he must be challenged to that. He's not the one I'm talking about, by the way. You know what I'm saying? He's not the one I'm talking about. So even when he went through things like his divorce and things like that, he had to kind of show and prove because his word was out there. That's unfair. It feels unfair. But you know what's unfair? That if he's not a person of moral compass, though, the bullshit that he would be saying gets to be heard by everybody. And because he says it so greatly, is going to be listened and studied and emulated and dealt with. So I don't really feel that kind of way for a hip-hop artist that has all that. It's why, like, people go, oh, Sunez, you're so critical of Jay-Z, and he's not who I'm talking about either. You know what I'm saying? You know, and if you're really in tune with what I'm saying, though, you know, he's on the opposite spectrum. He got beat up by, you know, he got beat up. He was the opposite in that elevator. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Right? But, so if Jay-Z is not just diluting the music with his, you know, with his musical choices, which like Blueprint 3, what a disaster that was, right? But with the musical choices of pop, you know, which again, that's the Biggie that was the Biggie, Puff Daddy model that he took to the highest heights. Really, what I said in 1994, what was wrong with what Biggie was doing, Jay-Z is the one that took it to the biggest heights. You know what I'm saying? Great hardcore song, bullshit pop song. Great hardcore song, sample Glenn Fry, primo song. Sample bullshit Glenn Rod Stewart, primo song, or whoever else, right? That massive imbalance though, and everybody's like, oh, but it was all hot, No. And I'm gonna throw in the hot summers, how they were bought for, because everybody wants to read Sunez's piece on Flex payola, taking payola. Are you in? And nobody's interested. Nobody goes, hey, Sunez, who the hell was giving him the payola? Nobody wants to know about it. And I'm telling you, they tell you in the song, I gave you 8 hot summers. He took out the wallet and he said, hey, here's the hot summers, and he paid for the hot summers. That's why you see Jay-Z, not AZ. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
They had pop cuts too, But when a person has that form, they get to be challenged, especially with the parameters that we set forth, right? We're talking about things. And it became more of a thing where you talk about more things that are more real. So they got to be held to that fire if they want to say all this shit. If not, put a big disclaimer on it. Say, this is a fantasy record. I would like you to enjoy this record as a fantasy record. Commence enjoyment though. You know what I'm saying? Disclaimer your shit. Is anybody doing that? Have you gotten these vinyls like that? I don't remember you getting the vinyls like that, right? Like, this nigga says that this most likely is filled with fake shit. It's on you to believe any of the stories henceforth. You don't get any of that. You know what I'm saying? Even when you give a guy a beat, right? You're not going to him like, it's okay if it's all bullshit, right? You can kick that fake shit. You could lead him astray if you want. It's not really what we're saying. People are just expressing themselves outwardly, And yes, the journalist helps though. With a brother like Estinek, who I talked about last week, who I'm not talking about, is not the person I'm referring to. Right? I'm in process of elimination. Everybody's going last week, saying, right? Right? It's not Estinek. But I asked Estinek, you're the god. And some of the shit you say is savage. You know what I'm saying? Why? You know what I'm saying? And nobody's gonna do that to me, because I got the stripes and say, oh, so you just want something righteous and shit like that, and do that kind of dumb excuse and throw it back on me like if it was on some bullshit. You know what I mean? That's not my call, Because when I interviewed Billy Danz, I didn't say, hey, listen, why were you talking about go get your motherfucking hammer and act like you want drama? You send that message to my mama. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to ask him that, because I knew that's what the fuck they was doing, and that's what they were talking about. That's what they were doing, and that's what they intended to share. And they had they set their moral compass, right? And they didn't act like if it was anything else. You know what I'm saying? Right? I did fuck with Billy Danz though, and I said that, when I started the interview, I said, listen, I'm gonna act like I want drama. You know what I'm saying? I was fucking with him, like doing MOP lyrics. So. But the thing is though, is that when you get those MCs that act like they have that decorum, have that integrity, and they don't. They're acting like they're a moral compass of the integrity of the culture. And it's almost like they have it musically because it's a niche. It's the niche. I own the niche, and that's what they want. But I asked Estinek, who is not the person I'm talking about, and he gave me the answer. I go in there, and they're like, I had said this, and I said it to him. I wrote about it like this back in the Filtered Real book, that these are like jazz sessions where you're coming in and doing whatever's on your mind at that moment. He said, yeah, that's how we do it, man. We don't really think about, oh, I got to be righteous here, or I can't say that, I can't say this. No, we're letting people know, like, this is what comes out, and we just throw it out there, And so it becomes a commentary where we say, listen, I don't make my creations like that, right? Whether I'm on a song, whether I do poetry or in a book or anything like that, whatever I do, it doesn't, I just don't do it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like I won't say certain things, and it's not because Sunez, I have daughters and I wouldn't want them to see me as a. No, I was writing this way before I put the seeds out there. You know what I'm saying? Before they were born, like that's not the way. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's not. It's not the way. You know. It goes all the way back to my old earth, but that's just the way. You know. When they asked me to be part of King Magazine, I said, listen, I can't interview a girl and ask her about her titty size. You know what I'm saying? As a regular statement. You know, I can't do it. I didn't go. I didn't end up in King Magazine. You know, wasn't gonna be a thing. You know what I'm saying? You know. Now it's like information that men would like, though. Right? Is that real? Are those fake? Or those? You know, but that wasn't gonna be my thing. You know what I'm saying? But when we add knowledge to that cipher, that knowledge add on the cipher is the justice letter in the alphabet. You know, the justice is the action of the judgment of what you've learned. The knowledge adds on to the cipher and it produces a new reality. And so you have to make a judgment with that new knowledge. And it changes everything that you fulfilled, you born before. It could corrupt it, it could add on, but it has to be dealt with or it doesn't add on. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, I felt stifled. I didn't know what I could say, so I kept it neutral. I kept it so neutral, it was like a European country. They be neutral though, but they be winning too. Right? They're not that neutral. They be like, we're not in this fight though, but they're getting all the assets. I became Switzerland. You know what I'm saying? Right? Whoever wins, I'm good. No, that's not me. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that in this day of knowledge add on the cipher, we look at that. You know what I'm saying? We look at that because to be able to serve justice, you better be right and exact. You know what I'm saying? You better be right and exact. That's always been a thing. In my relationships, I'm not talking about like with women or things like that, but everything, relationships, right? I'm willing to take that moment and serve justice, which means that whatever I think, I have to make sure that I'm being as right and exact as possible. See? That what we are serving justice for isn't based on a judgment of just projection. You know? We're just projecting. We're not really judging correctly with that new knowledge. You know? This is difficult because this is what stops a man from continuing to be the true and living God and say, you know what? This is too hard. Right? Every single, and it's not about the moralities because we're righteous. We're not holy. We are tampered with, right? We have done things that have been negative, and we have gotten this knowledge because we got through those negative things where we got mud on ourselves. You know what I'm saying? The shit that I'm talking about though is a should have known and should never have done type of shit. So it does not fit that category. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like as a man, as a grown man, as a man that they say they know the streets, you know what I'm saying? You gotta get the white man into it too. Yeah. Nah. But how we judge those things, because the first thing that happens when you're the true and living God is that people expect a holiness out of you. You see what I'm saying? And it becomes that excuse where everything that you share can be dismissed. You're not so holy. You can't, and they'll know what you can't do. You know what I'm saying? Right? You can't do this. You don't do that very well. You know, who are you to judge? The truth is, though, is that we judge all the time. Get used to it. We judge everything. Luigi says, I'm going to learn this. You've made a judgment of me and the worth and the time that you would spend. I was telling Luigi before I got on here. You make a judgment. Two people tell you something. They both sound like something that would have to be researched. This guy says stupid shit all the time. Sunez is saying something usually that makes some kind of sense, usable, worthwhile. Well, then the work of a scholar is to decide, man, he's full of shit all the time. I want to see what he says. See? So the worth of the way that you research is based on time. And if things are based on time, then you make a judgment. We're always judging. We're always judging. You know? You go, I never believed the word that Sunez was talking about. Never. Not once. I researched everything. You know what I mean? Just like I told the troll. You don't have to believe me. You could be mad about all the polo. But you got to show and prove to yourself everything I said. Because that's what I did. Knowledge Me told me that everything that he said, this is from the way he taught me. Everything he said here is not yours. He said that it's not yours. I'm teaching you my understanding. It's mine. Don't go out with my understanding. You know what I mean? Man, the lazy student's like, fuck it. I forgot everything. Right. You know what I mean? The bad student. They don't want to do no work. What he meant was that he lived it out. He showed and proved it was right and exact to the best of his ability. It's his understanding. It's literally a truth that he can show and prove. It's not my truth. It's basically me believing someone of great standing at this moment. You know, someone that have great standing in this nation. And I'm like, yo, it's not me, man. It's the guy. You know? But to make it yours, though, is to go through it, to see different things. To see if you agree with it, to see what you don't agree with. To see what you would come back with as a counter question. You see? I love the counter question thing, too. You know?
It needs all of that.
All right, let me see some of these things. I feel I have ranted long enough. Hopefully I've ranted well enough. All right. Peace to the God, Jarrell. All right. You said today's math is knowledge, add on a cipher, all being born in knowledge. This can be seen as recognition of circulation. Recognition of circulation. Interesting, right? 1 and 0, circulation. Justice being the law that distinguishes right and wrong, what we give, receive, take and give, produces systematic, collective interdependence. I agree, but when we say justice is being the law that distinguishes, it's the judgment that is the law. That's the application. The justice is served as enforcement of it. Because we are in an active world. You see? You know how they say the universe favors chaos? It's the same thing with justice. You have to do things righteous to keep things up. You have to go clean things to keep things righteous. You have to ever be cleaning, ever be bathing yourself with belief. You see? So justice is something that is served. It is continuous. See? It isn't something that is just a mandatory law. The judgment is done by the law of mathematics. But that justice, though, is the serving of that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? How much weight does that new knowledge adding on to the cipher affect it all? Once we have shown and proven that it is worthy knowledge. You see? How will we embed it into the process continuing forth? And it is so interesting that in that continuing forth pattern, we end up with knowledge. And then the degree that goes with that is word is bond. Because once you have embedded it and accepted it, it is knowledge with that knowledge. It's now unified. It's together now. So word is bond. It's a bond. You're constantly bonding knowledge. You know what I mean? Right? Peace to light visible. Malik, you said when Musa was civilizing, teaching knowledge and wisdom, when did they agree that he couldn't reform? Oh, the 34th degree. Is there a difference? Those decisions may have been at the same time. But when Musa goes to teach, he's not reforming the devil, he's preparing them to survive. He's not reforming them. No, he didn't go up there to make them righteous. He made them to make them useful in society. So that's why he said he taught them trick knowledge. You know what I'm saying? He's teaching them how to deal with that. So like in the culture degree, in the 1 to 14, he's teaching them how to build homes for themselves. It's not a whole bunch of carpenters going downtown. You know what I'm saying? They're basically going down saying we can be part of the society and embed ourselves. We will be peaceful and we will know how to handle ourselves as citizens. That's what it means to build homes. Is that person? It's the same thing when the United States doesn't really allow original people in mass unless they're from like India, China, and they have things to offer. You know, that's why we always get them as model minorities, because we're, you know, from the islands, or, you know, definitely the islands, South America. This is all immigration collateral. This famous Dominican professor, Silvio Torres, he calls it immigration collateral, you know, whether it's Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, all that, because the islands and the countries are conquered by industrialization, by colonization, right? The only way that colonization can really take root in an effective way is if the mass populace that is made unemployed, that would be unsustainable, is now shipped somewhere else. And that's where you get Puerto Ricans coming in. You get 1960s, they let Dominicans come into the US. You know what I'm saying? Because they've done so much in the island, it's just not going to work out with that much unemployment. So they, especially by the 80s, 90s, you have the free trade zones in Dominican Republic, you know? So then that has to go. That's different from the immigration from the countries of the East, where they're taking original people that are doctors, engineers, you know, scientists, people that they don't even breed well in this country. They're not breeding deep scientists here like they are in other places, you know what I'm saying? So they get them, they import that intellectual capital, literally. You know what I mean? But then these people have to show and prove that they can be worthy. So then what I'm saying is that those original people from the East, they have to show and prove that they can build homes for themselves, that they've come into the society and not be useless. Because what's a person that can't build a home for themselves? Not just building, but we're talking about like metaphorically, right? Build a home, meaning that they're going to be homeless. They're not going to be able to live in this society the right way. And that's what the devil didn't know how to do. They didn't know how to function. You know what I mean? They just went around telling lies, stealing, doing devilishment, and that only got them so far. They needed the cunning, and they needed the reality of some righteous law to follow. You know what I'm saying? That's where, like, a lot of elders, including my enlightener, that the laws that were given to them, though, they are most preserved by the Jews. Those tribes of whites that could adhere to those laws. That's why, you know, they're a very significant population, because they're the whites that have adhered to certain laws. They still live by certain codes and stuff, as far as dietary laws, how they mate, all this kind of stuff is still very, very clear, even as they dominate in Western society. You don't see that kind of balance. You know, we could talk about like Amish people or others, or even original people that are not in the society. They might function very well, but they're not dominating in the Western world, even while they adhere to that. Especially, there's no group of white people that are able to do that in such a way. You know, the truth is that white people that have been ruling, their way of life, though, has been really chaotically savage on a personal level. You know, just a little research about the Catholic Church shows you that. That's supposed to be the rock. You know, and pedophilia and all this stuff is just commonplace in it. Let's keep it real, right? It's not like aberrations, you know, it's commonplace. So who are the ones that's why with the Jews, it's a whole bunch of things, you know? And I'll never make the NBA, so it's okay. I could say these things. I could say these things. And it's funny because now that documentary that Kyrie shared, though, is blowing up. And it has such outdated concepts some people making the point that like Hebrew Israelites were always saying this kind of stuff, but Hebrew Israelites were always saying that kind of wrong shit all the time.
So you think the documentary is wrong for the most part, or
It's filled. You know what I'm saying? It's filled because the idea that you could take, right, the Hebrew tribes, and there are great books, Dr. Ben and all of them, that show like the original Hebrews, just like all the major Western religions are rooted in black people's religions.
Right.
But to just say that the original Hebrews were black and that we have a direct lineage to that, it takes a very linear, incorrect approach to how history is made. You know what I'm saying? These are tribes, and religious tribes have been warring for property, for land, for all these years. The way that the Jewish tribes have gone and settled, they've done it clandestinely and they've done it outright. So there's no way that you could find a lineage to these Jewish tribes and it goes straight directly into America, Black America, like that. It's more like this, where the tribes go here, there. It's branching off in multiple branches, and there are always possibilities that there are Black Hebrews that might have a lineage to trace and stuff, but it's going to be a difficult trace.
I just seen something from an actual Jewish scholar that did speak on. I think it was a African tribe in South Africa that supposedly they lineage go back, or some of the priests' lineage actually go back to Aaron in the Bible, and if it goes back to Aaron, they are allowed to be considered a Jewish priest. Then he mentioned the Igbo people of Nigeria and saying that some of them possibly come from a lineage of original Jews.
A lot of this is possible, but you see how that could get skewed the minute, like, most of Black Americans were slaves, so their lineage was tampered with, destroyed in so many ways. You can't find that lineage that way. You know what I'm saying? And because it's tribal, it's not. You can't say it's all Black Americans. That would be a heinous error.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean? But to say like there is a possibility that certain people have this lineage and things like that, sure. But what are we dealing with though? We're saying that the original people created everything. So to say that we're the origins of something is not that impressive. And it doesn't mean that we held to that.
But it's impressive to the 85.
Right.
Now to show
but yeah, that's why the
niggas on 125th saying this shit.
Yeah. But you see, like, and like you make generalizations. So they're like the Puerto Ricans or the tribe of Ephraim, and these are the Jamaica's the tribe of Judah and things like that. These are gross generalizations. Even if these tribes did exist and they were Black tribes that were Hebrew, to be able to just trace it generally to Puerto Rico, when Puerto Rico has such an influx of all different types of original people that make up what a Puerto Rican is. You already have the Moor that's mixed, right? Original man, mixed devil, right? And then that comes in. Then you have influxes of Moors from that went into southern Italy and get mixed in, like from where I'm from in Ponce, right? So you get all types of mixes. You got the African that's coming from all different tribes himself. It's just such a generalization. It doesn't make sense, you know? But to say that there are Black Hebrews and Black Hebrew roots, that is a more fair statement, you know? But again, you have people that take on things that they're not even close to being knowledgeable enough on. And not even just with the knowledge, they're even less articulate. So they wouldn't even be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what Kyrie says, he's just not articulate on that level, you know? Where people are only backing him not because he's correct, even though they're trying to act like he is correct because the documentary is somehow correct now, right? But it's because, you know, we relate to someone being trampled on. So once we see Black people in the limelight being punished excessively, it's always going to look like extra lashes. because that's what it is. You know, yeah, he did the wrong shit. But in essence, he shared a link. You know, he didn't say anything. He shared a link. You know, so even if you said Kanye, because Kanye says so many things, it's almost like Draymond Green kicking everybody in the balls. He really didn't get LeBron like that, but they were like, well, how can you argue? You know, it's going to help LeBron. We'll kick him out for the finals. You know what I'm saying? You've done it so many times. It'd be a great time to get you out of here, right? So you can't complain. But with Kyrie, it's different. You know, he's never said anything that profound. Like, people be acting like they was mad that he said the earth was flat or stuff. White people are the ones championing that. So,
stance against the vaccine or some shit.
Yeah, you know, and his thing was like he just I shouldn't have to take it from now on. He didn't stand up for it the way I was. So he wasn't helping me. He just sounded like he was just doing it because he didn't feel like doing it or something. To me, it sounded more inarticulate than it was. So you know, it's not like he helped me. If he was, he wouldn't be talking about no Hebrew posting no shit. He would have been posting the Supreme Court's decision and say, told y'all, you know what? If he really was about this crusade and knew it like that, he would have been telling the NBA, y'all owe me money now. Right. You guys owe me money because you were supposed to play me, because there's no way that taking that vaccine would have helped anyone contract. And it didn't stop people from giving it off when they had it. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. People were able to get it a lot, and really what happened was a lot more when they had the vaccine, and they were able to transmit it anyway, even with the vaccine. So if he really was a champion about these issues, he would have been like, you know, we ain't finished, right? Y'all owe me my money. Even if he wasn't going to get it, though, he would have been like, y'all owe me money. Supreme Court decision. That's the link he should have fucking shared. But he's been on these issues just like whatever's cool and hip. And I'm just going to, I see Kanye going through, so I'm just going to share this and sound hip, and I'm down. And that's not what you want representing you. You know what I'm saying? Although he's being punished excessively, but
I feel like he's playing a safe route, and I don't think none of these athletes or celebrities is really about that life to really go all in and put their career on the line, like to full martyrdom.
Yeah.
But is it best to just stay silent and not say nothing? Like, would you rather them have never? Because I look at this like a spark, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody coming up to you and saying, yo, you know the black man is God, and they just disappear. Right?
That's what it's a good argument that people have, because like, we're getting no sparks right now.
Right.
Music in the mainstream has no messages.
Right.
If we get lucky and a kid hears Nas, but he's older, so people aren't really, you know, he blows up in the mainstream, but it's really our mainstream. It's not really, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, you know, they're going like, hey, have you heard this? You know, right? So yeah, you know, like, we have to deal with broken clocks being, you know. Kanye, though, I say is no good no matter what. He's just so volatile that it's just hard. You know what I'm saying? It's very Trump-like. Yeah. He's saying everything that can be said, so he might be right about something. You know, you get lucky. You know, like, remember Trump was saying hydroxychloroquine. He was saying ivermectin is good. But he also was saying drink a little bleach and shit. So all of the things that he said right about ivermectin was right. So
he didn't articulate the bleach thing correct.
But that's right. Like, yeah, you sound so wrong about this that when you were right, it doesn't resonate with people, you know? And by, you know, as a note, ivermectin was propagandized as an animal medicine for animals. But the doctor that created that, he made a version for animals and he made one for humans. And it is the human version. This is basic Wikipedia, if you can find this. the human version of ivermectin is what won him the Nobel Prize. And it's used for malaria regularly, and it's taken over the counter throughout all of Africa. You know? So, go figure. They tell you it's no good here, you'll get killed, it's a horse drug. That's propaganda. It's propaganda. You know? And they did a good fucking job, man. They did a good job. Let's see. So justice is the action, thus judgment. Everything is active within you because you actively make the judgment. You have to see that the knowledge add on to the cipher. You have to see that it's true knowledge, and you have to see how it embeds with everything that you do know. And so you have to make a judgment of how you will serve that justice if now it challenges all that you had there, to make it greater, to lessen it, because remember, part of learning is letting go of things too. You know, we learn the adding mathematics is very westernized. But a lot of times learning in the Eastern way, especially the Taoist way, is by letting go of wrong things. You see? So they focus, and they focus on what you let go, not what you add, So like, even when if you're learning Kung Fu, you're adding certain things, but you're letting go of the wrong way too. You know what I mean? So like, you're not just learning how to punch, but you're letting go of the sloppy way that you punched. All the wrong ways that you punched. And then hopefully it'll become more natural to you, So there's a lot of letting go, Their mentality is letting go, But I see both just judgment and then the justice. These are active realities. These are active. But serving justice is certainly an action. Jarrell, you said you viewed it more as a way of discerning. And I get that, but that's the judgment. The justice is not the discernment. That is the judgment. The justice, though, is you serving justice, though. How will this change what you were dealing with and what you have already borne? You know what I mean? Right. Malik, you said, so when did they agree that they couldn't reform him? The truth is they had already agreed that they couldn't reform him, even as Musa is teaching him. Because remember, Musa isn't teaching them to be righteous, though. So they may have agreed by then. Right? Right? And he said, why would he teach trick knowledge? It comes across as trick knowledge, but all that Musa is teaching them is how to make the most of yourself. You see? So he takes them at their flaws. He's not like, listen, come on, gather around, guys. I'm going to teach you how to be a son of a bitch. That's how we see it, because we're looking at things like good and evil, and good guy, bad guy, and shit. That's not what it is. He sees these flaws, weak and thus wicked individuals, but they're mainly seen as weak individuals. He's not seeing them as wicked. That's not how you teach. People have to do things to be wicked. He's seeing them as weak individuals that are very prone to wickedness. And now how am I going to teach them to fulfill their reality? Meaning, how can they be the best that they can be? Well, I have to teach them how to embed them their ways. And they'll fall victim to these ways. So I'm going to show you these things that you'll be doing so that you could be embedded in society and live your best life. If you use a misnomer of the day here. You know what I'm saying? Right? Let's try to look at the lessons, not so much as like decrees and edicts. And so in our mindset, we think like back then, historically, people were talking like that. You know what I'm saying? Or thinking like that. Creation is such a different process. A more humane, natural thing. Right? And no, we should definitely not speak of what we don't know. But again, as in my position, as I was talking about with this rapper, when you don't speak or include the knowledge that you know, you've affected the knowledge add on a cipher. I've changed it to what it was totally different. You know what I mean? What I think, Kajan Sohini, is Musa was teaching them according to what they were. He was teaching them according to what they were. They knew they were weak and prone to devilishment. So he teach them how to make the most out of their weakness. You see? And when you do that, though, you're teaching people, like, you know, let's say you teach somebody that's weak, they can't really survive off things. So they'll have to sequester extra materials. They won't be able to work as hard for what they need to get. They'll need some help. How can they get this kind of help? How can they get it from people? So now you're telling them how to speak a certain way, how to get things that you need, you know? Right? In the history of this country, they always say, you know, it's greedy to think about having too much and things like that, but no one that has money ever thinks of it that way. In fact, the true decree is more money, more problems. So you need more money because I have more problems that are in accordance with that situation with more money. And so it always justifies, though, that you never really stop. We study economics, though. Economics doesn't tell you, like, you know, when you become a billionaire, you just sit back and do it. No, that's not what they teach you. The first teaching that they teach you in macro and micro economics in college, like this is what I learned, is that all businesses will expand forever. The goal is to ever expand. Expansion never ends, technically. You're always looking to expand. Think about that. In a finite world with finite resources, this is the bullshit that they told us. You know what I mean? It's totally against natural reality and the world. But they told you that's business. You are always expanding. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, like, well, what if a motherfucker owns and tapes everything?
Well, maybe you're looking at it like the universe. You say the universe is always constantly expanding. That's why they doing whatever they can to take their businesses.
I'm sure that they had a holistic viewpoint when they, fucking Kenzie and John, Keyes and Adams, when they were writing about capitalism, they were all like thinking the same thing. They were thinking so, cosmic. I don't know if they were so new age when they wrote these things.
They say billionaires.
But even still, capitalism is based on capital. And there is, no matter what, a finite level of capital. But in some ways, though, I do agree with you, actually. Because when in their mentality, the more you research about early capitalism and the way they thought about things, they did not see the earth as a finite place of resource. And to this day, even as they admit that it's a finite planet and they have to adjust, at least they say they have to adjust, they know that there's one asset that is always infinite, and that's the black mind. So the asset of our intellectual capital, that shit's always going to be infinite to them. Look what we did with hip hop. With very finite resources, we made $1 billion industry. And it's pretty quick too. It's pretty quick, right? Officially recorded music. We say we get albums regularly, where it's a viable thing. 80s, right? So this is $1 billion honestly, by the time it's maybe a couple of years after Eminem blows up, it's pretty much $1 billion there. It's pretty much $1 billion there, like 04 or 05. It's pretty much there. So that's very fast. It's a span of like 20 decades. Right? That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah. That kind of money has not been made from jazz. That kind of money has not been made from other black genres. Right?
Is that the quickest, business?
Yeah, because look, they've made business out of every single genre, but it never made the impact like that. When you see like the biggest selling records in jazz, for example, if you want to go by that, that's like Kind of Blue, which is a classic and amazing, and that's 1959. So if recorded jazz is going on consistently since the 20s, it's a long time. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then we get the end of the 50s. So that's way longer. It's almost half a century, right? And there's no way, no one's going to tell me that hip hop has made less money than the peaks of soul music. There's no way. No way. this cash cow is just on another level. You know, you could even look at just the enterprises that go out of it, though, movies and things like that. It's way bigger. You know, none of the musics had stars like Tupac and shit like that. Like they didn't, not that big like that. You know, it's a lot of blood sucking. Oh, Malik, you were saying you. Okay. Not sure what you were saying that you were speaking on Kyrie. Let me know which one you thought. My brother. Peace. All right.
Real peace, man.
But yeah, over this last week, it has reminded me of how much my life has become like a. I didn't know it was going to be like that, where like I have to be like a gatekeeper of so much shit. You know what I mean? And then people see like it all adds up. If people see me do kung fu, if they see me do this, it's almost like I have to be like a physical gatekeeper and shit too. And I'm like, damn, you know that. But it's just really as simple as honoring the things. Like certain things people do, they can't really correct it by saying my bad. They have to do other shit. You know what I'm saying? It isn't as simple as like, oh well, if I record a song and do this, you know what I'm saying? It isn't like that. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these artists though, they take it like, oh, I said it though, and that was what I thought about at that time. And it's almost like they take their life like that too. I said this, but that was at that time, so it's not really. You know what I'm saying? And no, though, you know, these songs might be your journals, you know, but there has to be an integrity at every moment that you do them if you're going to put such the deeper ideas you put in there. This is why, like, people get upset, and I don't feel sorry for them. They get upset. They're like, yo, I put some deeper ideas, and now people expect this, and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck do you expect? You know what I'm saying? Do you even want to take the challenge that you have a deeper idea and now you have to stand on that deeper idea? Like nobody, like, and it's not like we don't get to be white people with shit. We don't get to say, I want to say whatever I feel like saying though, and it's just my thought by itself, and I live in my own context. And this is why my Jay-Z criticisms, because it's about rugged individualism. That's a concept of like, you know, the migration out west, you know, to get gold and everything. Like we're just gonna do things for ourselves and we're gonna make all the money we can. And that became like the American ethos of business, right? That shit doesn't translate perfectly in hip hop at all. Even though the hustler motif and persona does, because we always have to do for ourselves. So that really translates so powerfully. But when you mix it obsessively with rugged individualism, you take away the humanity that could be left in that hustler, persona, and so you're in a slippery slope there. You're in a slippery slope there, you know, and you have to be mindful of that, you know, and that's why that's really look in if I'm critical of people like Jay-Z, that's why. You know what I'm saying? That's why. Because he's had the most do out there. And no one's gonna tell me, and no one's gonna say that he's stupid. He gets praised for his acumen. You know, so we get to thumb through the music and say, yo, he should have said this. This is not good what he said and this and that. And he's just, oh, I didn't mean to say it, or that's what I felt like saying at the moment. You know? The truth is that artists are all constructing their reality. You know, they don't have it as easy as a person like SDNAC is the god, but they have constructed such an avant-garde type of music that they could be wild out within the context of it because we're already listening to it say, this music is batshit crazy and good. and it's weird.
Right.
So what he's saying with it can be as off kilter and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? It's not so much though with other people, because other people can't make shit like that.
So the fact that it is to you like real art and done in an abstract way that justifies some of the content.
It doesn't mean
at times.
it doesn't mean that I agree with that approach. And I've told this nigga that's not really my approach that I would completely agree with. But I present my trepidation and I present what they actually are doing. As a journalist, I'm supposed to explain like this is what they are intending to do. But then it goes totally different though if I learn about some bullshit a nigga did.
Mm-hmm.
And it defiles all of the music that they have made. You know what I'm saying? So like that's totally different. You know what I'm saying? That's totally different. Especially when people rhyme about street code and shit like that, and you know, they went off script on the first fucking pages of 101, you know, Streets 101, you know? They went off script like if it was okay. Don't tell me it was okay. I'm not even from the fucking street. And I know that shit was off code. You know, so it's like, you know, that nigga's gonna sound real fake to me. You know what I mean? Absolutely, Malik. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Kyrie was definitely speaking about things that he doesn't. And I don't know if he feels that way. Sometimes I feel like Kyrie doesn't feel that he doesn't know enough about it. He's blown away about the little that he learns that he thinks he knows a lot about it.
I mean, that's what
right?
happens when you discover new
Yeah.
knowledge. So it's like, oh shit, word.
Yeah.
This is what I'm watching.
People don't always have that framework though. But you know, that's also why, like in the public eye, you've got to be careful about what you say. You know, like people have been dissing Jordan forever for not being conscious, but it's not him that ever said anything stupid. You know what I'm saying? It's people. We hear things said by LeBron that we don't agree with. We hear things by Kyrie we don't agree with because they're the ones that are like they want to be these moral compasses and they open their mouth, right? The truth is, right? I'll give you an example. Jordan said he doesn't do politics and like a Republican could buy his shoes just as much as a Democrat, shit like that. He was basically saying he was neutral. Not very sensitive way of saying it, but he was saying he's neutral. He doesn't know about those things. He's not going to speak about those things. So it's for everybody, whether they're disagreeable or not. That's really what he was saying. But for a person like Kyrie or LeBron to have that form, you needed Jordan to be quiet and get all of this money out here. So the forms that everybody's complaining that Jordan never took, they don't even exist until Jordan gets all this money. You even see scrubs with fucking endorsement deals. You know what I'm saying? If you score 8 points a game, you shouldn't have your own sneaker. But they got them now. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, like, because of that, a whole bunch of people have forms that they don't really deserve. You know, so like, what do we do with that too? You know, what do we do with that? Like, we're trying to be appreciative if something gets thrown out there, but we're gonna get more of this though. We're gonna get more people like saying shit that's like, oh, this and that. You know, like I cringe with everything. I saw something where they showed LeBron and a clip of LeBron and AD, and they were going out into a restaurant, and everybody's like, oh, LeBron, AD, and he was like, and Kyle Kuzma retweeted and was like, oh yeah, we were like the Beatles and shit. Like, yo, people were passing out with the fucking Beatles. They weren't going, oh look, LeBron. No, it was pandemonium. It wasn't even the clip I just saw. It wasn't even like Jordan when he went out. People were passing out with Jordan. Michael Jackson, people couldn't even keep their shit like when they were around him. Like, it's like people, I don't know, man. Like in a generation where like YouTube has all these clips and you haven't, you know, like, and it's like we also have a culture where like it's almost like there's no, and I feel this way too, because so many of our elders have died, but I really feel like in general, we don't seem to have like elders passing down stories. what they went through, what they did. And I think a lot of it is because people are becoming older and they're not proud of what they've done. They may not have those things that they're proud of. They didn't march. They didn't do shit. They weren't there. People talk about this rally, Million Man March, Million Youth March, shit like this. And when they go back, they weren't fucking there. They didn't do shit. And so there's no stories to pass down.
They just were.
They're gonna pass down though that I met your mother while we was dancing to this song, and I know it's embarrassing that this is the song that we were dancing to. Some Nelly shit or some other bullshit that was popping in the 2000s, you know what I mean? Some nursery rhyme that they put a weaker beat on and we was going nuts in. And that's the legacy. There's nobody's passing down stories because they don't have these real stories of worth. They don't. Be embarrassed though. You know? My goodness. Listen, I'm honored. I could tell my children, even if their mothers don't really care for this music anymore or whatever, they saw quality music. You know what I'm saying? I ain't taking no bullshit concert just because they said, "Oh, I like him though." Well, you know, you take that trip yourself with your girlfriends or whatever.
Right.
This date though, we're going to the music that I say we're going to.
Right.
Not that bullshit you listening to. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna go see Anita Baker. You know what I'm saying? We're not gonna go see that hoe. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna see real music. You know? Something we could be proud of though. You know what I'm saying? What kind of dates you went on? I'm going to Birdland. I'm not going to, you know, watching some nigga do gangster rap.
Yeah.
You know, make us say ho for fucking 3 hours. You know? We went and saw Rakim though. You know?
That's peace.
Yeah, no, this shit could get out of hand. But yeah, it's real. You know what I mean? And you know what? In your studies, if you're not learning knowledge that is challenging your viewpoints about stuff and then verifying it, then you may not be adhered. You may not be applying the knowledge. If after a while, like everything feels like, yeah, everything I'm learning, I agree with, then that means you're not really challenging yourself. You know what I mean? Like there are philosophers that I see eye to eye. Like Jiddu Krishnamurti is my guy. You know what I mean? Every book I read, I'm like, oh man, that's kind of the way I am. You know what I mean? Like, boom. But I also read. That's why I always joke. Me and the God Day Son. I'm Jiddu Krishnamurti to his Osho. His Osho was a great philosopher, but he was a savage though. And at one time, when he was alive, he owned the most cars in the world.
I didn't know that, bro.
He was a legendary 10%er though. If you watch videos about him, he had white folk doing the stupid spiritual classes and shit, like hitting themselves with foam bats and learning nothing. Then you watch his lectures, he's dropping jewel after jewel, God. And his books are challenging. They have insights and all.
Reverse 10%.
Whatever it was, though. You know what I mean? And he had like fans and he was living lavish, though. And they would wave to him when he would go by. And, you know, like he had these whole societies. Yo,
I thought he was still alive.
No. But Osho, he was crazy. But, and so definitely Day Son fits that. And Day Son, one of Day Son's favorite books is The Rebel by Osho, which is a very challenging book. When I'm saying challenging, now it's hard to read, but his ideas are so next out there. But if you just say, oh, that's stupid and everything, then you're dismissing it. You're not seeing like, what is the viability of what he's saying here? There is some viability. You know what I'm saying? Just like I'm sure when people read Jiddu Krishnamurti, it might not resonate with you. You know what I mean?
And what books you from?
With Jiddu Krishnamurti, there's a whole bunch of books because there's like Jiddu and Osho, they have hundreds of books, you know. But one book to start with is Think on These Things by Jiddu Krishnamurti because it kind of has the gamut of a lot of things that he builds on, you know. But definitely, if you've read Jiddu, then you understand. You understand a lot of the stuff that I say. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff that I say that because it's resonated with me. But Osho too. I read a lot of Osho now too because it's so challenging. You know what I mean? You know, like he has these challenge. He has a book called The Gandhians. It's only about 14 pages. You know, and he speaks about like the negative aspect of Gandhi was that he was trying. His way of teaching was to try to stop everybody from wanting things, and you can't stop people from wanting things. By reserving yourself away from everything that is natural, from sex, from love, from all these things, and everything has to be about negating those things, you know, and that it actually could produce the opposite of what you expect. These are things a lot of people don't want to hear, especially like an Indian person. They don't want to hear that shit. They love Gandhi, you know, because Gandhi did a lot of great things. He said a lot of great things, you know, right? And yet I was reading that, I was like, yo, that shit makes a lot of sense. You try to repress people so much so they could do the right thing. That's when they start doing the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like you teach women, you teach young girls, you teach them about sex and stuff like that. You say, listen, don't do it at all. But they're humans like us. They're gonna grow and want to be in love. They're gonna want to express themselves in that way, just like in every other way. And what do? They end up making worse decisions. Because every time they make a decision, their world is ended. That's not, you know, and that was really his point of the criticism of Gandhi, was that, you know, it was so restrictive that it was basically blocking development. So like Osho's works have a lot of challenging thoughts like that. And I mentioned that one because he's Indian, and that must have been a real challenging concept to share with other, you know, Indians at the time, because, you know, Gandhi's so revered, you know what I mean? Right? But a lot of Jews wrote a lot of books, man. A lot of books. I have at least 100 books of his. So, yeah, there's writing or orating a whole bunch of shit, you know. Some of them are short, some of them are super long, you know what I mean? So, right? I know The Rebel, the book that Day Sun loved, that one's about 400 pages. So that's a long one. But it's got I'm about 200 in. It's good. A lot of stuff in there, you know. But yeah, if you're not finding something, the knowledge should be challenging you, whether it's challenging your moral system, making you articulate your morals and ethos and principles better, or it's just something that you're not so good at. It could be that simple. We're not challenging ourselves with things that we're not good at, like things that we don't know. Like I was telling the guy, like when I read so many books, but I read novels very slow. It's not real life, so sometimes I drift, fucking daydream. You know, like this motherfucker's not real, and I start daydreaming while I'm reading it. Though, who cares about that bit of information? He's a fucking fake character. So I lose interest and I start dozing. But widening my palette allows me to concentrate and gives me different viewpoints of how people express characters, human condition, all these kind of things. Just like when you watch a movie and it gives you insights about humanity, you know, right? So I deliberately make it a thing to try to read more novels and shit like that. You know what I mean? I still really average like 1 or 2 a year. So I mean, like I read 52 books at least a year, but I still average like 2 novels and shit. I think I read more than 2 though this year, so I was pretty good. It was in it, you know. Yeah. I see something here. Understanding cipher degree in the 1 to 40. The grafting of brown from black, and was there no more black and just brown, etc. Okay. Not sure what the question is there. But remember, when the original man is the brown and the black, this is the original man. People be like, no, the original man, the black germ can't be destroyed. Well, it technically was. Like when you separate them, they're no longer strong. They've been weakened. And it's not that they're weak germs, either the black or the brown. It's that when they're separated, they can be destroyed. You know what I mean? And when you destroy, then you can what? Start to separate the brown from its other constituents, the yellow, and you can start that process. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of it's the separation that causes the weakness. It's not the germ itself that's weak. It's only after you separate and dilute the blood in that process that now when you get to the white, you finally have a germ that actually is weak because it actually has been diluted and altered. You see what I'm saying? So we could even argue that the brown seed that is made and the brown seed that comes about and the yellow seed that comes about, if we wanted to be really technical, that comes about through the separation is most likely more weaker than a natural brown seed, the natural yellow germ, the natural yellow brown germ, because in this case it has been diluted to be destroyed. But then that could be the case with the original black germ too, that was weakened as well. It had to be weakened so it could be separated. You see what I'm saying? But people really be on the separation that the black man's body existed two germs. So that means that all of this humanity, all the germs are within the black man's body. All of this code is inside. You know what I mean? And that's what is left out of the build. You didn't ask that, but that's pretty much what I know.
So that's the case. I mean, I kind of know why, but how do we, I guess, justify or distinguish when they say, anything made weak is devil? So it's like,
but remember,
we was never gonna just have
the black and the brown and the yellow
in
that process, right? In that process, right?
I'm brown seed, so
right. In the process of making the devil, the black, brown, and yellow seed in that process, in this experiment, have all become weaker to be destroyed. Right. But we remember the cremator destroyed, so there are no black, brown, yellow germs in that process. That experiment only leaves white at the end. There is no other at the end. See? Now, in the regular humanity, the black, brown, and yellow, those will happen naturally based on the realities of environment, the needs of the environment, the changes of the environment. And that's different. That's what we would call, like, in just technical science, the natural selections of the environment, though. How someone's phenotypes are changing. And that includes the shades, different environments, different locations, different levels of sun and everything like that. Remember? Because remember, people go, oh, they go, black people don't get the sun very well. They don't do good with absorbing sun. That's because the darker the individual, the more that they can block the sun rays. Meaning that the melanin is much more active as a guide to block the sun or to receive the sun. I think that doesn't always play out in today's humanity because our people are unhealthy. And so that natural ability is not in play. I think when the people are healthy, then their full capabilities of that melanin as a physical structure in the skin organ, particularly since we're talking about, even though it's everywhere in all the organs, but in the skin organ that people talk about, that's to me why it doesn't always happen with everyone. We just end up seeing black people don't absorb, get vitamin D enough from the sun and stuff because their skin is blocking and stuff. I think that has more to do with diet than actually, you know what I'm saying? It has affected everything, and along with stress levels of just.
And us not even really being in the sun that much.
Yeah.
8 hours or whatever inside of work, school.
Yeah.
Some people, they house, you know what I'm saying?
That might have been augmented during slavery and the needs of slavery, because for those that were outdoors. But then once we live more of this domesticated reality and we're in factories, we're inside with the machinery, the whole thing goes crazy. You know what I'm saying? Right?
And that probably like from that point, you probably will see an increase of certain sicknesses and diseases amongst, original people.
Yeah.
Those people in general.
Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what has to do with it shows the power of the adaptability. So much so that we don't notice the things that we had that are being left behind with that adaptability to these horrid conditions. You know what I'm saying? And we take it as adaptability because Europeans, they cannot adapt. When they're put in the places where they're not from, they can't adapt. They can't adapt to the hot weather places. They cannot adapt, Like when we talk about slavery and them building all those houses in the South and stuff, they literally would not have functioned to be able to do all that. And so the foundations of actual civilization in this hemisphere, oh, the original man had to do it. They were not able to put those foundations in there. You know, they're just now running it though. You know, but they're not able to do that. You know, you see a different world today only because diet has advanced and things like that. So you see more capables. There's so many more variables. You know what I mean? So many more variables. So much more knowledge about diet, health, all of these things. You know. But if I said that the black, brown, and yellow were all made weak during that process of making devil, none of those individuals are supposed to exist. At the end of that process, it's supposed to be devil. You know what I mean? So it isn't like a society with black, brown, yellow, white. The experiment was to extract through all of them, make the white, and it's only white people that are supposed to come down. It's like people aren't reading the green. That's what it says. You know, it wasn't like it was escorted. Now, how did the white population multiply themselves when they come back? That's where Musa's teachings has them embed themselves. And when we look at people, that's why I said the Jews. Today, throughout history, the Jews have always been able to embed themselves usefully in societies, but not really take over. They dominate in their own way. They don't take over. It's only in America where you see them dominate, where people will call them out, like as owning media and things like that. You know what I'm saying? It just became a thing because communications is really what they dominate. And that wasn't the major thing. It became the major thing. And then it also became the major way that we express ourselves and that we make money, right? We're making money through sports or some kind of really artistic communications, song, dance, you know, right? So then it changes though. They happen to be in the field that just upshot itself in importance.
Along with real estate.
Right? You know what I mean? Right? Because before, what was the institution? It was religions. And Christianity had the hold on the original man, and that was it. And then all the actual performances, everything, the song, dance, everything was all within the church. It's the extraction of those things, right? All the church singers extract out. But that wasn't supposed to be a thing. But you have legends like Ray Charles who starts to incorporate it more into his song, and now you have the church come out. But these are really like new developments. You know what I'm saying? And then now who's got their hands though in that lane, which is a very subtle lane, you know, because we didn't get like just Jewish network, you know what I mean? We didn't get shit like that. We got the, you know, like people don't really understand how, you know, how many Jews own things and how many Jews are embedded in society, and they do Christian things. You know what I'm saying? They do Christian things. It's not a whole bunch of Hasidics running shit. You know? It's not like that. Very intriguing. Very intriguing, the power play. You know? But they also become the only whites you can identify. And that's why that's why you could get lost in that too, which is not good. You know, it's not like you go like those fucking German Americans. You don't do that. You know, those British rooted Americans, right? It's whites. And if we think of anybody, Jews, and then you think of other whites, they're low on the totem pole. Italians that have passed for white, Irish people. But Irish people were always in a low block. They were never on, you know, they might own something like Tammany Hall, New York City. They own politics for a while, but they dominate the firefighters or whatever, but they never really, they're not a real player like that. Like that. You know what I'm saying?
Respectfully.
Yeah, no, yeah, respectfully, but they're not a dominating force, like, you know, where you say like who's the oppressor and things like that. It's not really them. They're really agents of, you know. If it's like
they got white privilege.
Yeah, if it's like, yeah, they got white privilege, yeah. If it's like, but they're functionary, like Cypress Hill says, it's Officer O'Malley. You know what I mean? It's him. They're the functionaries, the overseers, but they're not really. Right. In general, they're not really dominating like that. You know what I mean? But nobody looks at Mitch McConnell and goes, oh, that's the Irish people. Like they've embedded themselves. They're from different things. It wouldn't identify him correctly as like what he's doing. Like, oh, Mitch McConnell, because he's a super devil politician. But you don't go, oh, see, it's those Irish people. Doesn't make sense. When people see the Jews, they go, look, the Jews, because they'll see they own this media, they own this newspaper, they own that newspaper. They own a lot of functions. They have the power to curb your content if it seems disagreeable to them. People forget, like, if yes, it's not just them, but they kind of prove exactly what Kanye was saying by the way they shut down Kyrie.
I think most people from Medina and other parts of Nawad that live in close proximity of large Jewish communities and seeing how certain shit is ran by them is also part of the reason why we feel the way we feel about them or whatever. Like, as somebody from Brooklyn, I was saying about this shit even before me even knowing it.
It's funny. I was born in a Jewish hospital because Sunset Park is here, and then you go up, you get Borough Park, and that's a Hasidic community, and it's one of the few places. That's why people say Jews run this, Jews run that, because it's the only white people that you'll find that you could see a collective white privilege. Because when you go into Borough Park, you're seeing a collective white people that do stuff that we would never be allowed to do. Right. We would never be allowed to have our own police force. Exactly. We would never be allowed to like run a strip. Where everything goes through, all of the shipments and imports into that neighborhood go through and are sanctioned. You don't have stores where you see 100% their foods and things like that. You know what I'm saying? We had it. That took years and years, and you see it in small levels with the Nation of Islam, things like that. But with Hasidic Jews, for example, you see it with the whole neighborhood. That's white privilege we've never been able to do. That's a fact. These are facts.
So I mean,
a lot of people ain't seen the Jew police though. Right. They ain't never seen that. They think it's just making up stuff, but that's a real thing. It's a real thing. They got their own police. We have our own police. Like you go to Brownsville or Bed-Stuy, you know what I'm saying? Or you go to Spanish Harlem, they have their own Boricua police. It's unheard of.
No, we got officers from our community, but it's like once they cross over to the blue side,
they happen to be relatables in the dominant society police force, but they're not, they're not under our command. Right. Like our decrees don't really affect them. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't make a decree and say, listen, we don't want you in the streets anymore. We have to convince someone else that they don't belong in the streets. Right. So that's not really the same thing. And that's white privilege, though. Because it's not like black communities, but what was Black Wall Street? That's what they were trying to do. The MOVE organization in Philly, that's what they were trying to do. Right? And when they tried to do it, they got bombed.
There's no movie or anything on that move.
No, I've never seen it.
It should be one. It should be more.
It'd be a tough movie to watch, so I'd rather have a documentary. But
documentary, because it's like I feels like not enough people know about that.
I don't know if there was a documentary, but I remember there was a lot of good footage and something was put together. I gotta see. There might have been a documentary. I'm not sure. But
I still feel like not enough people.
But that's really like an example of that. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because they weren't really bothering people. They were in their own world. They were developing. It was really grassroots. It wasn't really like, they didn't really have a network where they could import things like, they could be blocked off. Like they could be shut down. They didn't have like monetary wealth. They just had the idea. So they were very much in the infantile stage of that. But just the idea of it got them bombed. Like, an urban area being bombed, like it's unheard of. You know what I mean?
And that might be the first and only time the U.S. government.
No.
Some shit like
that. During Reconstruction period, black neighborhoods in the South were bombed.
Right.
Right. And even in Puerto Rico, the U.S. government also had places bombed in Puerto Rico that were basically pro-independence. You know, so they enforced their colonization. They enforced their colonization on the island. You know, so even as they said that, and this is after 1917 when they said we're citizens. So technically, if they bomb someone in Puerto Rico just to stop them or to quiet them, they have bombed their own citizens. They would technically, because everybody from Puerto Rico is now an American citizen. Technically, you bomb your own citizens. You know, that's in War Against All Puerto Ricans. It's probably one of the most revelatory things with proofs that's in that book. You know, pretty much a lot of the other stuff in the book either has sometimes some of it has like questionable scholarship, like the details of what someone was thinking, like Louis Munoz Marin, who was like the sellout governor. But as far as that goes, but everything else is kind of stuff you could compile. So it's a good compilatory work with some things that might not be so well done. But that detail right there is something that has good scholarship on. That's why I mentioned it. Very, very powerful point. Yo, this is like this is the second before I left my kingdom today. When I left my house, there was a black cat on the steps.
Okay.
That's black cat. The black. See, you know, I'm in tune. I'm in tune.
Come here, baby. That's not your room. Come here. Come here. No. Come here. Come on. Come. This guy, man. What the fuck is wrong with this goddamn dog, man? Come here. Baby, come on. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Come on, go in your room. Go in your room. Go in your room. There you go. There you go. You go in your room. Come here. Go ahead. Come here. Come here. Come here. Hey, come here. Baby.
Okay. Let me see if there's any questions. 793rd, you said. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, see, I knew there was, because I seen footage, Kajan. Yeah, I've seen footage. Yeah, the brother here saying that there is a documentary about Move, goes into everything. Frank Rizzo, Philly PD did it. Yeah. I knew there was, because I seen footage, so I assumed that that must have been from a documentary. 793rd, there was a time in now why history in the 50s when original women who were nursing students at the older Lincoln School for Nurses in the P.E.A.C.E were trained with Jewish medical student doctors trained together as many other institutions wouldn't rock with them. Think of the hospital scene in Godfather when they moved Pop's body, avoiding assassination attempt, which was filmed there, was born in Lenox Hill in Manhattan, where the doc insisted my old earth to have me there since they knew and trusted each other coming up. Same spot where whomever brought Blue Ivy into existence. Interesting. That's a lot of history then. Okay. All right. All right, so it seems like a shorter class. I've been here since equality, so I'm about to be over in just a few minutes. If anybody has any questions about anything, it's a heavy build because that's knowledge add on a cipher is a heavy motherfucker though if you think about it. You know what I mean? And definitely one for me too. So let me know if there's anything. You know what I mean? In these last couple of minutes, so but we're at the 9 o'clock hour, so. If anything, since there isn't, I'm gonna put my email here. Anybody that has my phone number, let's keep building. All right. Anybody that's new to this class, I don't remember, brother Kajan, you're new to it or whatever you would like to learn, particularly in detail, or what you would like to share and everything like that. That's what the email is for. If you want to learn this knowledge directly from me on that level, you wouldn't learn it though just by logging onto the class. You would have to build with me. So with that said, I'm gonna say peace until next week. All right, peace. Shit, I didn't.